Okay, so the last one, he'll give a bit of a talk, but he's also going to be doing music. So that's Ari Spivey. I met him a few years ago when I was doing this documentary called Love Unrelenting, and he's in there for a bit. And so he does music with Christian Universalist themes, which is kind of rare. There's a few other guys out there, but you don't hear it too much. So you can come up and speak a bit about that process or what drew you to do that, and then you can actually give us a few examples there. You're probably not going to need this, right?
No.
Okay, I'll move that then, yeah.
Thank you. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing? Pretty sure you guys are going to notice that there's a difference between me. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about what I'm going to talk about. I would like to say first and foremost to all the speakers, I'm honored to be on the same program as you guys. A lot of you guys have probably read your books, probably watched videos, so I'm really honored to be here. And I'm also honored by that Stephen keeps inviting me to stuff. So because I genuinely feel like I really don't have much to offer. But my name is Ari. As you can see, I do go by Fel Kingdoms. I'm a hip hop artist. I do other stuff too, but in terms of music. But I've been making music for a very long time. Since I was about maybe 10, 11 years old. I got into hip hop, I got into making music, and so I've been making music ever since. I've gotten the opportunity to tour over the country with a lot of different people, so I'm very fortunate about that. I just don't want to ever do it for a living because I hate touring. So I'm good right here. I'll stick with it right here. But the whole entire point of this conference is Christian Universalism, and God's love is unrelenting, and God will inevitably save all men. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got to this point, because obviously I grew up in Black Pentecostalism. So pretty much our soteriology, or at least our view on the end times, was, hey, if you do not believe, you will burn in hell for eternity. And that's really all we ever heard. And then even coming up in hip hop, you have something called secular hip hop, and you have something called Christian hip hop. I don't know if you know the difference, but there's a whole niche in terms of music with Christian hip hop, and it's gospel rap. That's what I grew up listening to. So, but within all of that, much of the music that I grew up listening to was very Reformed focused, Reformed oriented, Calvinistic a lot of times. And there was a lot of hellfire preaching in the music. And so that's all I knew. So pretty much everything and every point of my religious upbringing was just sort of saturated in this hellfire speak and preaching and things like that. So it always seemed very natural that I would just accept it. But at some point, and you guys are gonna freak out. You guys are not gonna freak out. I'm gonna freak out because y'all gonna look at me weird when I say this. So when I was about 12, 13 years old, you guys know what a Nintendo 64 is? Okay, you know what it is, ain't you? So my cartridge in my Nintendo 64 stopped working, and I'm a kid of the 90s and of the early 2000s. That's all we knew was just video games. And so I became very entrenched in, video game culture and everything. My cartridge stopped working, so I couldn't play my video game anymore. And you do the little thing with cartridges where you have to blow it and then you gotta put it back in. It just wasn't working. And so it peeved me off so bad that in a fit of rage, albeit in, adolescence, I basically looked up at God and I said, God, I hate you. It's petty. It's very petty. Don't laugh, but it's very petty. But after that, I just sort of blew it off. It was I'm just mad, whatever. Apropos that, a year later, I'm in the sanctuary at church, and so this pastor, he's actually preaching on this something called the unpardonable sin, which is blasphemy, allegedly. And so he basically says, hey, basically what's going to happen is if you've said anything akin to, I hate God, you're done. I was like, oh, snap. So I'm thinking like, yo, this is, so I'm sitting in the pew, and I'm only about 13 or 14. So just imagine what a 13 or 14-year-old is thinking in his head, where he's like, God won't forgive me for the thing that I did a year ago. And so I'm just thinking, I'm literally like repenting as I go, but just think about the fact that I know that it, at least where I am and where I was, I know that it doesn't matter. It's terrible. So at some point, it just became like this the only thing that I ever thought about, and I knew that I felt as if I couldn't actually talk about it to my parents. It was like, hey, your son's eternally damned for eternity. Like,
Yeah.
can you help out? Like, what are they gonna do about it? So I just sort of kept it close to my heart, and I just never really expressed it to anybody. So as I just kept sort of just existing in that, just like a sense of like existential dread just began to wash over me at 13, 14 years old. And nothing could change that outcome right now. So at some point, I'm about 13 or 14, and I just want to get it over with, because it's just like, hey, I'm going to be tortured. I don't need to be tortured here right now, knowing that I'm going to be tortured, so I might as well just like end it. So my mother, she had a lot of health complications, so she did have some medication. And so I'm sitting at home, and I think my mom is at work and my stepfather is at work. And like I said, I'm 14. I can't talk about it to anybody because, you know, I'm gonna be a pariah, like social pariah. So I actually contemplate just taking a lot of that medication and just drifting away so I can go ahead and just get my punishment started. Because it's just too much. It was just too much for me. Because it's a lot of pressure. But so that's one thing. And then so as I'm contemplating it, the only reason why I actually became a rapper is because my stepfather was also a rapper, and he was a part of another hip hop group. They were pretty big at some point. But as I'm contemplating this, I'm just thinking about an unreleased song that he made like years prior, and I can only like just continuously recite in my head just this one piece of a verse, of a bar, and it says, "You burn and bleed for eternity. There will be yelling and weeping and gnashing of the teeth." And that's all I can continue just to recite in my head as I'm contemplating like just killing myself and ending it. And so obviously I never did it because I was just a chicken. I got to do something. So that's all that I can remember. But then also prior to that, my Aunt Morel passed away when I was maybe about 6 or 7. And she never made a public profession of faith. So it had always dawned on me that, hey, what happened to my aunt when she passed away? I don't know where she ended up. Because I know her mother, my grandmother, made a profession of faith and she was a devout Christian, but my aunt wasn't really that like that. And my aunt was the nicest, most beautiful woman you would ever see, you would ever know. And in Tampa, she actually got into a car accident and died on the bridge. So at that point, I'm contemplating with the fact of my inevitable damnation. And I'm also contemplating with the fact that I do have other family members who have died without Christ, at least right here, right now, at least that I knew of. And I'm thinking like, what is going on? I don't know how to like parse that out as a 13, 14-year-old boy. And I just knew that inevitably speaking, I would just have to just deal with the fact. If we're not going to end it, I just got to deal with it. And so, like the vast majority of my teenage years up until I was about 18 was just shrouded in just straight up existential dread most of the time. At some point, it actually led me to just utterly just say, I don't think this is real. I like this is what we've been preaching for how many years since I've been born. I just don't think this is real. So it led me to end up apostatizing. So I wasn't a Christian at some point. And then inevitably, through apologetics and, you know, stuff like that. I eventually ended up thinking that, hey, there's probably like some intellectual warrant to this whole Christian thing. And at that point, I just literally chose to compartmentalize the entirety of Christianity and just like place that over here and just like, well, I'll deal with that later. I don't need to worry about that. But so I just knew, at least intellectually speaking, that there was some intellectual viability to Christianity. At some point, though, it kind of got to a point where it's like, I can't keep pushing this. Oh, can't keep pushing this over there. And my aunt is just in my head. It's like, what am I to do with this fact that I'm sort of like, I don't know where my aunt is, and I sure enough know that I may be facing hellfire. So at some point, it just led me to sort of just I guess it was somewhat of a reconstruction of my faith, and I just sort of started from the ground up, like literally from my Trinitarianism, and I just started building up from there. And eventually it got to a point where it's like, all right, now you got to deal with this eternal conscious torment thing. And eventually I did. So pretty much what you heard today from these men is pretty much what I inevitably ended up as accepting. So obviously I don't believe that I'm eternally damned. You know, I believe that Jesus has saved me. But like I said, I'm not here to present you like a different mode of processing universalism. I think these guys have done a really good job for it. Rather, I'm here to show and present why I, as a artist, feel the need to actually incorporate that universalist theme into my music. So, if you don't know anything about hip hop is actually based within protest. So, if you don't know, in maybe like the late '90s, you're dealing with late '80s, late '90s, you're dealing with a lot of racially divisiveness and things like that. And so, from within that disenfranchisement, African Americans came up and they adopted this art called hip hop to protest what they viewed to be oppression and, like I said, disenfranchisement. So that is the culture that I come from. And so because now I know, based within the religious trauma that this doctrine led me to experience, now I think it's only appropriate to protest the culture and the religious trauma that I grew up with and I experienced through my music. And so pretty much now, any music that I make, whether it's explicit or implicit, it's always about God will inevitably save all people. So that's what I'm going to do today. I got three up. Now I got to hook it up. Give me a second.